Hello everyone, this is Cody Lee of BlackCatBooks.org, author of I, the Dragon, Cruel and Beautiful Rabbit Hole King Dio, and the upcoming Lauren Frey. Lately I've been playing a lot of Pokemon Pearl, Pokemon Shining Pearl on Nintendo Switch. I'm on Victory Road now, I'm going through it, I'm almost to the Elite Four, and then once I get there I should be able to easily stomp out the champion and establish myself as the new reigning best trainer in the Sinnoh region. Always a great time, always a lot of fun. I've had a lot of fun with this game, in spite of all of my very real problems with it. And in spite of what you may think, my problems with Pearl aren't necessarily my problems with the remake. In fact, everything I've seen done with the remake, the visual changes and some minor quality of life stuff, is perfectly acceptable. I'm very, very happy with the remake itself. If I have any problems with Pokemon Pearl, problems that I will be going into shortly, it's the fact that Pearl wasn't my favorite gen to begin with. Gen 4 was the Pokemon generation I think I was the least happy with out of the initial 5. 6 I think is always going to be my all-time worst, but Gen 4 is the one where I really seriously considered not being a Pokemon fan anymore. I don't want to say I ever stopped being a fan, but there was a brief period of time, like after Pearl came out, where I obsessively played it, got through all the way to the end, and legitimately thought when I finished it that I had grown out of Pokemon. I didn't really feel all that enthusiastic about the post-game content. I didn't like all the online features, how I couldn't do certain things or trade certain Pokemon. At that point in time, I was really beginning to feel the limitations of the series, right? Of course, Pokemon's not perfect, never was, never has been, never will be. But when you're very young and getting into the series for the first time, you don't really appreciate it. You don't really understand that. To you, it's fresh, new, and exciting. But when you start developing the typical Pokemon formula, and just going through the games over and over again, there are times where it feels a little bit stale. Now, there's nothing wrong with that because the formula they established works so well. In fact, if it wasn't for the fact that the games were so good, they would never have established this formula to begin with. But playing Pokemon Pearl, I felt like none of the areas were all that interesting. I didn't like a lot of the gyms, or I didn't like the progression. I didn't like that I didn't really appreciate the sense of discovery. I felt a lot like Gen 4 was mostly designed around this idea that Sinnoh was a land full of a rich history and culture. More so than I think any other gen up to this point, the Gen 4 seemed to be focused on this idea that Sinnoh has this very rich history and culture, going back to the creation of the Pokemon universe itself. This is the generation that established Dialga, Palkia, Space and Time, and Arceus, the Pokemon God. I think that's a little bit too simplistic of a term to describe it, but basically, Gen 4 seems to have made this kind of creative decision, and that kind of influence can be seen in all the legendaries, and as a result of that, the legendaries, I think, look the strangest out of any that we've seen up to this point until Gen 7. I can totally see how people could look at Dialga and Palkia and think they're not Pokemon. They don't seem to have that same design. They seem very alien and foreign, and that's kind of the point, right? That's kind of what they're designed to be. They're kind of supposed to be alien. They're kind of supposed to be completely different creatures. Maybe they could be classified as Ultra Beasts in this day and age. We'll have to. I don't know, maybe. I haven't talked about the deep lore of Pokemon in a while in regards to to how this is structured. It took me forever to note it to realize there was a difference between legendary and mythical Pokemon. I had no idea that was a thing. Like the Pokemon, the general everyday Pokemon were legit probably the best they ever were. But when it came to the legendaries, it was difficult to like for me to feel as invested in them. And going through the game again, like going fighting Team Galactic, getting to these confrontations, I don't feel as invested as I was as I remember being in Gen 1 through 3 with like, going up against Team Rocket, confronting Giovanni multiple times, going through like the Rocket Lair, having the legendary Pokemon in Gen 3 like severely affect the environment at a certain point in the game. Like, it feels like in those games there are like real stakes and real consequences and real things going on. Gen 4, there's like a bit at the end where like you have to save like the three lake Pokemon, and that's really about it. Like, for the most part, you're just randomly battling like Team Galactic grunts. They have higher ideals. They have like they have an agenda. They have like a plan, probably like the most sinister plan that any team in Pokemon has ever had. Like literally creating their own universe, their own utopia, and it's not as interesting as I don't think I cared for it back in the day, and I don't care for it now. I didn't find it relatable. It didn't keep me invested, essentially. And there are things I like about the way the plot is set up. I kind of like how I think this is the best they've ever done with the concept of like a friendly rivals. I was kind of thinking while I was playing through this that like I like Dawn and your rival as like people a lot more than any other friendly rival character in the series. Like better than Wally, better than like those kids in Gen 6, better than like Lily and that guy who has a crush on her in Pokemon Sun, like Pokemon Gen 7. Like these characters act your rival and your opposite, I should say, are like feel like established characters with their own personalities, own motivations, own goals, and own interests. Right? You can kind of see how they develop as characters as you progress through the game, and like they help you in certain sequences, and that's always really cool to see. I really like the moments where you're going through areas and someone wants to come along with you, and you end up like getting into double battles with people. I think that's a really interesting way to kind of implement double battling into the general experience. I really like what they've I really like some of these cities and like their visual design and kind of what they and the variety and how they all feel different. That's typical for Pokemon, but it's not quite as good as Gen 3 for sure. It's difficult for me to explain what makes Gen 4, I think, not all that great of a gen. I think it really does come down to like a lack of innovation. Gen 4, when it initially came out, was kind of it did implement like properly for the first time a day-night cycle. It brought that back from Gen 2. It tied it to the DS clock. Big deal back in the day. I remember that being like a huge deal when I first played. And I appreciate that aspect of it, but like it doesn't affect like the actual mainline game. Like the day-night cycle is just something that like essentially dictates like when certain Pokemon appear when you get right down to it. Like it's not something that actually affects the gameplay the way that like breeding affected Gen 2 or just having completely new focusing completely on original Pokemon in Gen 5 did for that game. Like I'm enjoying my time with Pokemon Shining Pearl. I really am. But like playing it again, I just think like there are so many more Pokemon games I would rather play than this one. In fact, if this hadn't been like remade, I probably never would have come back and played it. I didn't care for it when I first played it, and I don't think I particularly care for it now. It's interesting to go back to after all this time and play through it again, but it certainly isn't my favorite. Certainly not one that I would recommend to other people. If you're wanting to get into Pokemon, I think the definitive generation to start off with at this point is either the most recent one or Gen 5. I think that's probably my go-to answer for that. Soul Silver, if you can get a hold of it. Like I think Pokemon is a great IP. I love the series. I love Pearl, but I don't think there's any denying that there are much better Pokemon games out there.